Welcome to the Emancipated Mind Show. My name is Anneshia Freeman. I'm also known as the locksmith because I make keys for locks in the mind. I'm an award-winning master-level therapist, and I also have an MBA. I'm the creator of a cognitive restructuring program entitled The Lies That Bind. This show exposes and challenges dysfunctional unconscious beliefs that cause people to engage in self-defeating behaviors repeatedly despite the consequences. This show is streamed live via Facebook and YouTube every Thursday from 7 o'clock p.m. to 7:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, welcome to the Emancipated Mind Show. Hello, my name is Anneshia Freeman. I'm also known as the locksmith because I make keys for locks in the mind. Welcome to episode 14 of the Emancipated Mind Show. This is a show that exposes and addresses the root causes of many problems that people face in their lives. Problems such as self-sabotage, procrastination, people-pleasing, dysfunctional relationships, perfectionism, addictions, low self-esteem, codependency, and tonight's topic, unrealistic expectations. Now, last week, the episode focused on unrealistic expectations that people put on others based on the labels they wear. So we're talking about unrealistic expectations again this evening, but from a different perspective. Tonight's topic is putting unrealistic expectations on yourselves. Now, a little more information about me. As I said in the introduction, I'm a master's level therapist. I also have a master's in business administration, and I'm a person in long-term recovery. What that means is I have not used any drugs or alcohol in over 22 years. I'm also a person in long-term recovery from trauma and dysfunctional relationships. So when I talk about unrealistic expectations and putting them on yourself, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have expectations for yourself. You can have high expectations, but they don't have to be unrealistic. Based on many people's childhood conditioning, they are not even aware that the expectations that they put on themselves are unrealistic, but they go through their lives feeling frustrated and overwhelmed and exhausted and resentful based on those expectations that many believe are coming from external sources, but they're actually coming from themselves, the way they've been programmed to think. The brain is developed, the mind is programmed. The mind is programmed primarily during the formative years by how a person is treated and by what a person observes. I say primarily because there are exceptions to the rule, and the belief system can be challenged and reprogrammed later in life. That's what cognitive restructuring is all about. So I'm going to first identify some examples of dysfunctional unconscious beliefs that cause people to put unrealistic expectations on themselves. Now, whenever you hear me use the terms lies, issues, unaddressed issues, and the buttons that people program, that people can push, I'm referring to the same thing. As I use those terms interchangeably, I'm referring to dysfunctional unconscious beliefs that cause people to engage in self-defeating behaviors repeatedly, despite what they consciously know they should do. So some examples of dysfunctional unconscious beliefs that cause people to put unrealistic expectations on themselves are as follows. You have to be perfect. You have to do everything perfectly. You have to figure everything out by yourself. You are expected to possess information automatically that other people possess or that means you're stupid. Remember, all of these beliefs are unconscious. You have to get it right the first time, and you have to accept abuse without questions. So for those who are just joining, my name is Anneshia Freeman. I'm also known as the locksmith because I make keys for locks in the mind. And tonight's topic is putting unrealistic expectations on yourself. So I'm going to go over the beliefs again. You have to be perfect. You have to do everything perfectly. You have to figure everything out by yourself. You are expected to possess information automatically that you were never taught, or that means you are stupid. You have to get it right the first time, and you have to accept abuse without question. Those are just a few examples of lies that cause people to put unrealistic expectations on themselves. I have a worksheet that I use in my relapse prevention groups. I have several programs that I've written and manualized, and one of them is a series of relapse prevention groups. And one of the worksheets is entitled Putting Unrealistic Expectations on Yourself. And so I'm going to go over the questions on the worksheet, and I'm going to give examples of some of the answers that I have received from people that I've worked with throughout my career. I've been in the field, the human service industry, for over 20 years. And so I've done this worksheet repeatedly with people, and I've asked people these questions over and over again. And here are some examples of the answers that I've received. So first, I start by asking people questions about their childhood, because as I said earlier, the brain is developed, the mind is programmed, usually during the formative years. So the first question on the worksheet is identify some unrealistic expectations that were placed on you as a child by others. And I usually have to give people a few examples because due to conditioning, a lot of individuals are not aware that the expectations that were put on them during childhood were unrealistic. So some people, after I've given a few examples, they start saying, oh, okay, now I understand. And they've given me answers such as they were expected to be perfect, meaning they couldn't make a mistake without getting in trouble, without being harshly punished. For example, if they knocked over a cup of milk at the table, they were harshly criticized or punished. If they didn't do well on their homework, and they were punished or they got in trouble, even if no one was around to help them while they were trying to do their homework. So that's an unrealistic expectation, to expect a child to be perfect. They were expected to possess information that no one gave them. For example, getting in trouble for not cleaning the bathroom correctly, but no one taught them how to clean the bathroom. They were just punished until they figured it out. They learned by trial and error. They were expected to read people's minds, meaning that there's many times individuals I've worked with have told me that in childhood, they got in trouble because they couldn't figure out what their parent wanted in enough time to carry out an instruction they were never given. So I know that was a little verbose, so I'll give an example. So let's say that their parent wanted them to do something like take care of a chore that wasn't usually their chore, but they were expected to do something before the parent came home, but they didn't know they were expected to do it. So they got in trouble, and the parent would say something like, well, you know, I wanted you to do this. I should not have had to tell you. So that's an unrealistic expectation for a child, to read the parent's mind and know what a parent wants if the parent doesn't communicate the request or the expectation. Another example of unrealistic expectations that have been put on children is to assume other people's responsibilities and keep up with theirs. So many individuals during the formative years, they are expected to take care of their siblings. I don't mean just help out and watch their brothers or sisters. I mean literally be the primary caretaker for their younger siblings but the child is about 9 or 10 years old when they're given this adult responsibility. And the child is also expected to keep up with his or her homework, his or her regular chores, and assume the primary caretaker role for siblings. Those are all examples of unrealistic expectations. And so the next question on the worksheet is, why do you think they did that to you? Why do you think that the people you were raised with during the formative years put those unrealistic expectations on you? And so I've gotten a lot of different answers, and I'll have to give you the edited version of some of the things that people have told me, because a lot of times people are angry in their adult lives as they're figuring out that a lot of the issues they struggle with were implanted or transmitted to them during the formative years. They're angry. And so, but some people have been in and out of therapy for years, so they have a little more insight and information, so they give a more understandable answer. So some people say that they believe that their parents put those unrealistic expectations on them because someone did it to their parents. So it's generational. Their grandparents put unrealistic expectations on their parents, and then in turn, their parents put unrealistic expectations on them. Some people have said, well, they had their own issues. Other people were so angry, they called them despicable human beings and said they did it on purpose. And so, whatever the reason that the unrealistic expectations were placed on the child, it's impact versus intent. I've worked with a lot of parents over the course of the 20 years I've been in the human service industry, and I've never worked with a parent that said, Ms. Freeman, I put all these issues, I transmitted all these issues to my children on purpose. That's not how it happens. It's usually due to lack of information and untreated trauma. And so when I ask people the next question, I give them a feelings list so that they can choose from this long list of feelings. And I say, well, how did it make you feel? As a child, how did you feel when people put unrealistic expectations on you? And some of the answers I've received are hurt, frustrated, panicky, confused, guilty, humiliated, provoked, antagonistic, envious, torn, unloved, threatened, unsure, rejected, inhibited, inadequate, and lonely. Those are just a few examples. Those are a lot of negative emotions for a child to carry every day when they should be having fun and enjoying their life. And so the next question is, identify the unrealistic expectations that others put on you today. Now, I know the topic today is putting unrealistic expectations on yourself, but I'm working up towards that. And so I take people through these other questions to lay the foundation to help them understand how and why they put unrealistic expectations on themselves. So when I ask, identify the unrealistic expectations that others put on you today in their adult lives, people have given me answers such as, people expect me to be there for them all the time, but they are never there for me. That's an unrealistic expectation. They say that people expect them to read their minds, meaning that they're in relationships with significant others who won't communicate their needs, but act upset when their needs are not being met. They said there's individuals in their lives that expect them to assume their responsibilities, to do everything perfectly. They said they encounter people who expect them to protect them at their expense. They said that they are involved or in relationships with people who expect them to be strong all the time or to never need any help. So I asked them, I said, well, how does that make you feel? How does that make you feel in your adult life when people put unrealistic expectations on you? And I've received some of the same answers that I received when they describe how they felt in childhood when people put unrealistic expectations on them. They say they felt frustrated, overwhelmed, angry, inadequate, unimportant, humiliated, confused, rejected, provoked, anxious, resentful, trapped, panicky, and threatened. So now we're getting to the part of the worksheet where we talk about the unrealistic expectations that people put on themselves. So that's the next question. Identify the unrealistic expectations that you put on yourself. And some examples of the answers I've received from various people over the years are to be perfect. So they expect themselves to be perfect. They expect themselves to do everything perfectly. They expect themselves to be strong all the time, no matter what's going on. They expect themselves to never need rest or recreation, meaning that they just work all the time. They work through the week. They work on weekends. They work nights. They work days. They sleep a few hours and then they get up and work again. That's an unrealistic expectation to put on oneself. They said that another example of an unrealistic expectation that people put on themselves is to do everything by themselves with no help, to take care of everyone else's responsibilities and keep up with their own, to handle every situation perfectly, to get everything that they try to do right the very first time. And if these unrealistic expectations are sounding familiar, then I'm going to show you why. It's because of these beliefs that I talked about at the beginning of the show. The unconscious belief, you have to be perfect. You have to do everything perfectly. You have to figure everything out by yourself. You are expected to possess information automatically that you were never taught, or else. You have to get it right the first time. You have to accept abuse without question. So these are unconscious beliefs that cause people in their adult life to put unrealistic expectations on themselves. And the list goes on. People have told me that they expect themselves to never need emotional support, although they freely give it to other people. They're always there supporting and comforting other people who are experiencing a loss or a hard time, but they expect themselves to handle whatever's happening with no support from anyone. They said they have expected themselves to accept abuse continuously without snapping, meaning that if they occasionally got frustrated based on the amount of maltreatment that they were experiencing from a particular person, and when they finally got a little frustrated and said something to the person, then they felt guilty. They were putting the unrealistic expectation on themselves to accept abuse without question and never say anything about it. To feel happy all the time, to never feel sad. That's an unrealistic expectation. As humans, we experience a wide range of feelings. They said that they've expected themselves to bounce back from tragedies overnight, or to instantly rebuild what it took them years to destroy, because a lot of individuals struggle with self-sabotage and they've blown their lives up over. They get their life together, then they blow it up. They get their lives together, then they blow it up. And then when they start rebuilding, they put the unrealistic expectation on themselves to rebuild what they destroyed, what they took years to build before they blew it up. Then they expect themselves to rebuild instantly or overnight. And so I've asked people the next question on the worksheet: why do you think you do that to yourself? And a lot of people have told me, Miss Freeman, I don't know why I do that to myself. So I take them back to the first question on the worksheet. Identify some unrealistic expectations that were placed on you as a child by others. And then I help them make the connection between their childhood experiences, what they internalize as normal, which are unrealistic expectations, and that, hey, you're doing the same thing to yourself. You have been conditioned to put unrealistic expectations on yourself. And so I ask them, how does it make you feel? When we go down, you just look at the list of unrealistic expectations. that you've identified that you put on yourself. How does that make you feel? And I've heard the same feelings that people described when they talked about how they felt as a child, when people put unrealistic expectations on them, how they felt as an adult when others put unrealistic expectations on them. They experience the same type of negative feelings when they put those unrealistic expectations on themselves. Feelings such as frustrated, inadequate, panicky, anxious, trapped, regretful, exhausted, cynical, unhappy, rejected, discontented, and lonely. So I ask people to restate. I say restate the unrealistic expectations that you put onto yourself into something realistic, because you should have expectations for yourself, for your behavior, for your quality of life, for the people you allow in your life. But they need to be realistic. So before they answer that question, I read the functional beliefs that challenge the dysfunctional beliefs that cause them to put those unrealistic demands on themselves. Now, it's more than just what I have in this little stack here. It's usually a lot more that's in my set of 100 most commonly seen victim lies and my set of 100 most commonly seen villain lies. This is a lot more than just the few that I have here, but it's just for time, for the amount of time that I have for this episode. I'm just doing a few. So let's read. I'm going to read the functional belief that challenges the lie, you have to be perfect. You are not perfect and you don't have to be. You are a human being and human beings make mistakes. A mistake has nothing to do with your worth and value. It has to do with your humanity. Everybody on this planet makes mistakes. There isn't a perfect machine. So why should you put that unrealistic expectation on yourself or allow others to put that expectation on you? Trying to be a perfect human being is exhausting work, and it makes you irritable and hard to be around. It also takes away from the quality of your life. Who wants to live up to that standard all the time? You don't have to be sloppy or lackadaisical about yourself and what you do, but you don't have to be a drill sergeant about it either. How about giving yourself and others a break from the land of perfect? Try embracing your humanity. You get to make mistakes and learn from them. So that's the functional belief that challenges the lie, you have to be perfect. So another belief that causes people to put unrealistic expectations on themselves is you have to do everything perfectly. So the functional belief that challenges that lie says, no one does everything perfectly. No one is that good. Mistakes are a part of the learning process. People learn by listening, watching, practicing, making mistakes, learning from their mistakes, what not to do, by asking questions, by observing, and by trying over and over again until they have mastered a skill. People who have mastered one particular skill still make mistakes and are less than competent in other areas. Even people who have mastered an art or trade have to continuously polish their skills and update the information they have learned to accommodate changes in that particular field. There are some things that some individuals will never be good at because it's not their forte. They have to accept that, and so do others. Everyone doesn't have to be good at the same things. That is what makes the world go around. Diversity of gifts and talents. So now I'm going to read another. The functional belief that challenges another dysfunctional belief that causes people to put unrealistic expectations on themselves. It's the belief you have to figure everything out by yourself. No man or woman is an island. I need the input of others in my life in order to make it. There is no way that I'm going to be able to figure out everything I need to know to successfully navigate life by myself. I will be running around for years trying to figure out something I could have gotten an answer for in a matter of minutes. I can ask for help and advice from others, but I need to use wisdom when choosing who to consult for information. Why would I ask someone who's never been to college to give me information about college? Why would I ask someone who is using drugs and alcohol for advice on how to live clean and sober? I have to make sure that I am looking to the learned when seeking information. There are people in the world who already know what I need to know and are willing to inform me. So I'm going to read another functional belief that challenges the lie. You are expected to possess information automatically that you were never taught or else. This is another dysfunctional belief that causes people to put unrealistic expectations on themselves. I am supposed to be taught what I don't know. When I was a child, I may have been around people who did not understand the principles of teaching, and they expected me to automatically possess information that I was never taught, or something bad happened. Well, that was then, and this is now. I can choose my teachers, and I can find some who understands the principles of teaching, who are patient and understanding. I no longer have to pretend to have information that I do not possess. I am supposed to be taught. I will acknowledge when I don't know something. I will no longer act as if I have the answers and embarrass myself. If I am in a situation in which I can't ask, then I will take the initiative to research until I find the answers I need. It is unrealistic to expect myself to have information that I haven't been taught. Whatever another person knows, someone gave them that information at some point in time. So now I'm going to challenge another belief that causes individuals to put unrealistic expectations on themselves. It's the lie, you have to get it right the first time. No one is perfect, and no one just automatically masters a thing the first time they try it. It takes years of studying, practicing, and studying some more for people to master a skill. Why would anyone allow themselves or anyone else to put an inhuman, unrealistic expectation on them to master a particular subject or skill instantly? If you are able to do that, then let's call a television program and get you on the next show. If you are like the rest of us, then give yourself a break and go into any new subject matter with the foreknowledge that you are going to go through a learning curve. No matter how many people have a certain skill that you are just learning, they had to go through a learning process to master that skill. Just because they went through the process earlier than you doesn't make them any smarter or any better than you. So I see I have a comment, so I'm going to check. Carolyn say one of her biggest issues. Yeah, I struggled with that issue, Carolyn, for years because that was one of the unrealistic expectations that was placed on me during childhood. I got in trouble for not knowing how to do things that no one ever taught me, and I was punished until I figured out how to do it right. So I learned through trial and error, and I spent a lot of years believing that was how I had to learn, that I didn't have a right to ask for help, or I didn't have a right to learn from others. I would fumble through life, making all sorts of mistakes and I figure out by myself because of this dysfunctional unconscious belief. You have to get it right the first time, and the belief you are expected to possess information automatically that you were never taught or else. Because in my childhood, the or else means you got in trouble. So I'm going to read one more: dysfunctional unconscious belief and the functional belief that challenges it, that causes people to put unrealistic expectations on themselves. It's the lie: you have to accept abuse without question. I do not have to tolerate abuse in any form. It is unacceptable. I have a right to question any behavior that I find abusive. I am an adult. I am not a little child being threatened into silent submission. If I am being mistreated, the people mistreating me will hear about it, but they don't have to concern themselves with hearing me talk about it over and over again. If individuals do not respond to my verbal complaints, then I will exercise my right to exit stage left on them. So before I finish reading the functional belief, I'm going to put this disclaimer out there. I always do whenever I'm talking about abuse. If you are in a domestic violence relationship, do not try to confront the person and tell them what you heard on the Facebook Live series, the lady on the Facebook Live series saying, call an agency or a program that specializes in helping people who are in domestic violence relationships exit safely. There are programs all over the country that can help you with, they have policies, they have procedures, they have funding to help you safely exit that type of relationship. The jury is still out as to whether respect is earned or demanded, but in either case, I will get mine by disassociating from people who feel they cannot treat me with dignity and respect. And last week, we talked about labels versus expectation. It doesn't matter what label those individuals wear. If they are related to you biologically and they wear a label such as mother, father, brother, sister, whatever, you do not have to accept abuse from them under any, so I don't care what label people wear. Abuse in any form is unacceptable. I have rules about how people treat my carpet and my furniture. I'm too valuable not to have rules about how I treat myself. So I see I have another comment. Oh, hi. Oh, hi, Detroit Diva. I'm not sure who you are, but put your name in there, but I won't say it out loud on the, I won't say your full name or anything on the Facebook Live series. So now I'm going to go to the second from last question on the worksheet. And I'm talking about the worksheet, putting unrealistic expectations on yourself. So the second to the last box on the worksheet says restate the unrealistic expectation into something that is realistic. So for the unrealistic expectation to be perfect, something realistic is I can work on improving myself, understanding that I will never be perfect. For the unrealistic expectation of expecting yourself to do everything perfectly, it's more realistic to believe that it's okay to take time to learn how to master a skill. You don't have to be sloppy or lazy. You don't have to be a drill sergeant either. You don't have to be mean to yourself. You can give yourself some grace and you can, allow yourself to go through the learning curve. And for the unrealistic expectation of expecting to never need any type of help or emotional support, it's more realistic to believe that it's okay to have emotional support from people. You don't have to expect people, and you shouldn't expect people to take care of you emotionally, but you can receive support, meaning that you have to learn how to manage your own emotions and how to process your feelings, but you have a right to receive support from others, emotional support when you're struggling. And so the next one, the next realistic expectation is that's challenging the unrealistic expectation of expecting yourself to assume everyone's responsibilities and keep up with yourself. I can take care of my responsibilities and I can ask for help when I need it. I can help others occasionally, but I will not assume other people's responsibilities. So see, it's about finding the middle ground. It's not about going from one extreme to the other, because dysfunction lives in extremes. So one extreme and unrealistic expectation is to expect yourself to assume other people's responsibilities and keep up with your own. The other extreme is I'm going to assume my responsibilities and I'll never help any other people and I'll never ask for help. That's another extreme. The middle ground is healthy. That you assume your own responsibilities. You help other responsible people from time to time when they need help, and you can ask for help from time to time when you need help. But it's dysfunctional to assume other people's responsibilities. That's not helping them. That's perpetuating learned helplessness. That's enabling laziness and irresponsibility. But a lot of individuals assume people's responsibilities under the guise of helping them. They really think they're helping, but they're not. They're depriving those individuals of the opportunity to develop their self-sufficiency muscles. So another functional belief or expectation is to understand that you can't expect abusive people to suddenly change and be respectful and kind, but you can disconnect from them. And in some cases, you can set and enforce boundaries, because some individuals you can't completely disconnect from because they work at the same place you work at and you have to go to work. And you can have abusive coworkers or supervisors. You have to set boundaries. And you can't. Some people think you can't set boundaries with a supervisor or a manager. You most certainly can. I've done it. And I've watched other people do it. People treat you the way you allow them to treat you in various settings. Now, there are times where individuals have to make a decision whether to leave a particular environment if it's completely toxic. But in a lot of cases, individuals are struggling and suffering because they won't set and enforce boundaries. And it's an unrealistic expectation to expect oneself to tolerate or accept abuse continuously and just be okay. You're eventually going to snap. They have a television show about people who accepted abuse for years, and then one day it was over. They couldn't take it anymore, and something really bad happened. It ended in something really bad happening because they had allowed the pressure to build and build and build and build. It's an unrealistic expectation to expect yourself to accept abuse from people. You can stop it. Set the boundary. Another realistic expectation is you can expect yourself, you put this expectation on yourself, to roll up your sleeves and rebuild your life, but realizing it will take time. It will be a process. So I'm a person, as I stated earlier, in long-term recovery. And when I got clean 22 years ago, my life was in shambles. So I had to roll up my sleeves. I didn't even have any sleeves when I left that lifestyle. I walked away from the dope house with a pair of shorts on, a tank top, some flip-flops. That was it. That was everything. That was everything I owned in the world. That was everything I had to show for my 36 years on the planet Earth. I'm 58 now. So I was 36 when I got clean, and I walked away, like I said, with nothing, but I, rolled up my sleeves metaphorically because I didn't have any sleeves, literally. But I had to rebuild my life, and it was a process. It didn't happen overnight. It was a process. And so it would have been an unrealistic expectation for me to expect myself to rebuild my life in 30 days or 60 days or even a year. I had blown my life up over and over again because of dysfunctional unconscious beliefs, victim and villain. So I was blowing up my progress in various ways. So it took time. So I had to take that unrealistic expectation off the table that I could get my life together in 30 days or 60 days or even a year or two. It was a process, and I'm still in the process. And so it's unrealistic for a person to expect themselves to be perfect and never make a mistake. But it is realistic to expect oneself to learn from mistakes so that you can handle situations better in the future. So you're never going to be perfect. You're going to make mistakes, and you don't have to keep making the same mistakes. You can do note to self reflections when you make a mistake. What did I do? What happened? What will I do differently next time? Right? You don't have to beat yourself up. That's wasting good mental, emotional, and physical energy. Note to self, I won't do that again. That's what I do when I make a mistake. I learn from it. I don't beat myself up because I understand that humans make mistakes. None of us are perfect. And so the last question or box on the worksheet, it asks the group members to identify some strategies that they can use to stop themselves from reverting back to unrealistic mode. Because just because they did the nice, cute little worksheet with me and my group, and it is a cute little worksheet. It has a little cute graphic. Look at the little cute graphic. I don't know if you can see it, where the person is putting unrealistic expectations on themselves. Just because they did the cute little worksheet in Ms. Freeman group doesn't mean that they're going to be instantly cured of putting unrealistic expectations on themselves. So we came up with some strategies. And these two strategies are my favorite, and people have told me they've done it and it's very effective. So I suggested that the group members get 2 stacks of little sticky notes, the little yellow sticky notes. And I told them, write one unrealistic expectation on a sticky note and put it on the wall or the refrigerator or your bathroom mirror somewhere. And then right next to it, put something that's realistic, a realistic expectation right next to it. So you got unrealistic. This is unrealistic. So next to it, you put a realistic expectation that challenges the unrealistic one. Do it again until you got all the unrealistic expectations that you put on yourself all on these little sticky notes, but right next to each one, you have a realistic expectation that challenges the negative expectation. And then you look at it, you put it somewhere where you can see it every day, and you read it every morning before you leave for your day. If you work from home, you can read it 2 or 3 times a day. If you work outside the house, read it before you leave. Read it when you come home. Read it before you go to bed. And over time, you're reprogramming, you're restructuring your belief system, you're challenging yourself to learn how to go from unrealistic mode to realistic expectations. Because you have to have expectations for yourself. They can be high expectations. They just shouldn't be unrealistic. You shouldn't walk around every day feeling overwhelmed, frustrated, angry, exhausted because of unrealistic expectations. So that's all for this episode. This is episode 14 of my show, The Emancipated Mind. If you would like more information about my work, I will put the link to my website in the comments. I'm going to put the link to my store page. You can buy this set of 100 unconscious victim lies and this set of 100 unconscious villain lies. And it comes with this workbook. You can buy that on my store page. I also have other workbooks such as My Unaddressed Issues, Make My Budget and My Schedule. Every dysfunctional unconscious belief in both stacks make demands on people's time and people's money. I also have the workbook. I think I held up the wrong workbook. So with the cards, is this workbook, the 100 most commonly seen unconscious lies. I also have the workbook, The Adult Reenactment of the Childhood Script. So I'll put the link to my store page. I also have life coaching packages. So if you're interested in working with me one-on-one, I will also put the link to my life coaching packages in the comments section. Thank you for joining me tonight. I will not go live next Thursday because it is Thanksgiving. So I will come back again the following week and with another topic addressing the root causes of problems that people face every day in their lives. Thank you again for joining me, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you for watching the Emancipated Mind Show. Join me every week live on Facebook and YouTube on Thursdays from 7 o'clock p.m. to 7:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For more information about my products and services, feel free to visit my website, AnnesiaConsulting.com, or my website, AnnesiaSpeaks.com. I can also be reached via email at afreeman@AnnesiaConsulting.com. I'll see you next week.